Now that was about the social structure. Let's see the educational sector that needed reforms in this sector. Schools for girls. Vidyasagar in Calcutta, reformers like Jyotirao Phule in Maharashtra, the Arya Samaj in Punjab established school for girls. The first school was inaugurated in the mid-19th century. So the people in pre-British era, they used to homeschool the girls. They used to homeschool the females of their household. And they used to think that if the girls, they will move out, it would not be good for society. It would not be good for the girls, as they will see a lot of distractions, and that will not be, morally okay for them. So they had these standards of morality and cultural appropriation for different sects and different groups, and women, according to them, should not have gone to school because it would be culturally or morally inappropriate for the whole society. Of course, that sounds ridiculous to us now, but then that used to happen during that time. So even when the girls, when they were admitted to the schools, some of the institutions, they did not used to give the same kind of education that men used to have, that the boys used to have, because they think that girls needed a softer kind of education. They needed a little less education than the men. Some of the orthodox and stereotypical men also claimed that girls and the females were intellectually inferior to the men, and they were born to be intellectually inferior to the men, and because of their biological structure, they were supposed to do the household works. So they were not supposed to go outdoors and do all kinds of works that is there in the society, but rather they were supposed to be at households and do the household work, because that is, according to them, was morally correct. Now these preachers, they also used some of the texts that were given by some of the preachers like Manu. So Manu in Manu Smriti had a lot of things written about women and how they were supposed to live, how they were supposed to, what kind of character they were supposed to have, what kind of what was supposed to what was supposed to happen during their marriage, or what kind of education they were supposed to get. So they often used to cite Manu. And in today's world, of course, we do not appreciate Manu in general. So, but there were a lot of ancient texts that they used to, had this in written form, that women should be allowed to, educated. And some of the reformers also took help of these ancient texts to, make these people understand that, see, this is what is supposed to be happen and not what you are doing right now. So this is what used to happen in the pre-British era. Now, of course, some of the reformers, they came up with this thing, and many women benefited from this. Many women who used to be homeschooled, they come up with some of the greatest written books. Some of the many reformers that they had were also female. Some of the many nationalists that we had were also females. So females, they started getting educated, they started going to schools, and this school for girls was inaugurated in the mid-19th century. These are the students of Hindu Mahila Vidyalaya in 1875. Now, why this is important? Because when I said that girls did not used to get the same level of education that the boys used to get, this Hindu Mahila Vidyalaya was the forerunner, was the first ever school that used to give the same level of education to all the females who used to study there. So that is why it had importance. The Begums of Bengal and Mumtaz Ali. So once the reforms, the voice was being raised for the reforms, it spread across like wildfire, and people, they began to realize the importance of women's education. Women, they started discovering their voice, and they started coming out. And they started voicing their concerns that we also have a right to learn. And some of these women reformers, such as Mumtaz Ali, reinterpreted verses from the Quran to argue for women's education. Begum Rokia Sekhawat Hussain started schools for Muslim girls in Calcutta and Patna. Now, some of these female reformers, they discarded all the things that society had to give to them. They discarded all the arguments that were against the schooling and education of women, and going against all of these systems, they started advocating for the women's education. They opened schools for girls in various cities. This is a picture of Begum Rokia Sekhawat Hussain. She opened schools in the two cities, that is Calcutta and Patna, going against all kinds of discrimination and orthodox that she received from the society during that time. Tarabai Shinde, educated at home at Pune, published a book, Stree Purush Tulna, criticizing the social differences between men and women. Now, Stree Purush Tulna, of course, from the name itself, we can see that this is about the comparison between Stree and Purush. So, the comparison between male and female was done by Tarabai Shinde, and in this book, she questioned that what is so different in our creation than from men. Like, are we made up of stones? Are we made up of dirt? Are we made up of dust? And you are made up of gold, pure gold. So what is the difference between our structure? What is the actual difference that you are acclaiming that we do not have? That what are the things that we are lacking, and what are the things that you have that makes you superior to us? These are some of the very important questions that she raised. And let's remember that she was homeschooled. She was not allowed to go to, there were no schools in that time, but she was not allowed. Even if there was, she was not allowed, and she was homeschooled. So after being homeschooled, she discovered that actually, if we compare the male and female, there was nothing that was, beyond any reason, beyond any valuable argument, beyond any reasonable argument, a rational argument that could give that male and female were born to do different stuff, that male and female were not equals. So there was nothing that anyone could justify for against this. Pandita Ramabai founded a widows' home at Pune to provide shelter to widows who had been treated badly by their husband's relative. So most of the widows, when they refused to be sati during their husband's funeral, they were not treated very good by their husbands' in-laws. Let's forget about the remarriage. They were not even given humane treatment at their houses. Of course, they were not even accepted at their parents' houses, but they were not even given a humane treatment in their in-laws' houses. So this Pandita Ramabai, she opened a widows' home that welcomed all the widows, and they used to teach these productive activities to these widows in order to make them economically sustained. So they could do these things and keep them economically well off. So they can live in a normal sense. So of course, she also faced a lot of orthodox arguments against her widow's home, but that would not stop these reformers from doing what was actually right. Law against child marriage. In 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed. The law set minimum ages of 18 years and 16 years for men and women respectively. So at that time, child marriage was very prevalent. Even if we see in today's society, as well, child marriage is as prevalent as 20% of the population, of the female population or the male population, is still a victim of child marriage. Mostly in villages, they are forced to get into child marriage, and obviously there are nothing that we can do to stop them, rather than getting them educated and have proper education and make them realize that this is not the correct way. So in 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed. That was also because of the deeds of reformers. So the reformers, they came that not only sati and female education and widow remarriage was needed, but what was also needed is a restraint on the child marriages, because when the children are married very early, they do not progress that much. They are not made to progress after the marriage, because they are so burdened with all the responsibilities and everything. The females, when they used to get married when they were child, after several years, they used to become mothers, and then they had their own responsibilities. So they were not educated. They did not get a chance to be educated. They did not get a chance to discover the society. They did not get a chance to discover themselves. So of course, child marriage was also a prohibition, a very, very, very big prohibition in their step towards progress. So that was also restrained. The act was passed by the Britishers, and the age was decided as 18 and 16 years old for female and men respectively. Right now also we have the marriageable age for female as 18 and for male as 21. Now let's see about caste and social reforms. Fighting against caste inequalities. The Prajna Samaj adhered to Bhakti, spiritual equality of all castes. Now, let's remember from the ancient India, we had Bhakti and Sufi movements. Now, the whole agenda of the Bhakti and Sufi movement was against the caste supremacy, was against the Brahmanical way of thinking, was against the Brahmanical way of supremacy. So that is why the whole Bhakti and Sufi movement came up, and a lot of the reformers then also, they came up with various ideas. They came up with various things that were very rational, but the people, they refused to believe that, because at that time people were not that much educated. People did not have a boon. But this time, the caste inequalities, it was taken very, very seriously, because the people, they were getting serious about being educated. Even the Britishers, when they saw these things, the inequality, the caste discrimination, the atrocities against women, they realized that India needed a cultural reform, and they also stepped in. Because they were living, they also stepped in, and they also helped in, getting some of the cruel structures of the society abolished, like sati, of course. Christian missionaries started setting up schools for tribal and lower caste children. So the Christian missionaries, they took up the job of, setting up schools, because none of the lower caste people were allowed in the schools that the upper caste people used to go. So the Christian missionaries, they came up with the schools for tribal and lower caste children, and lower caste children were taught in that school. The poor began leaving villages in search of jobs in industrial centers or in the army. So the poor, the untouchable, the so-called untouchable people during that time, they went to the city, because the industry was getting established. They had this thing that there are certain things that, of course, the upper caste people in the city as well won't do. So, of course, they will need us at some point of time. But, when the First World War happened, the army, they needed shoes, and shoes are made by so-called one of the untouchable castes. So they had this boon during that time. They gained a lot of profit, and they were benefited so much from that. But of course, that does not justify what was happening to them in the social aspect. This is the Maha Regiment. That is one of the so-called untouchable castes that used to prevail in the pre-British era. And here we can see Dr. Ambedkar standing here. Dr. Ambedkar also belonged to the Mahar caste. He was also considered untouchable, and he was not allowed to sit with the upper caste people. He was taught in a Christian missionary. He got his education, the primary education, in a Christian missionary, and further he was not allowed to study with the upper caste people. So he used to sit separately, and this hurt him a lot. When he went to US to gain his higher education, when he came back, he vehemently opposed all these caste system, and he worked a great deal for removal of these practices. Ghasidas and Haridas Thakur. Ghasidas worked along with the leather workers to start the Satnami movement in central India. Haridas Thakur's Matua sect worked among Chandala cultivators in eastern Bengal. So now these two workers, they started, one of the type of reform that all the people, so there were two kinds of people who supported the reforms. One who belonged to the upper caste community, who were educated and who had a rational thinking, and who said that this is not how the humankind is supposed to work. So they had their reforms in their own way. Now these workers, these could be upper caste or lower caste. These upper caste people, they also came up with the idea that they used to work with the lower caste people, the so-called lower caste people, and working with them, they wanted to make other people realize that see, we are working with them and nothing is happening to us. So basically, this is a normal thing that we both can do. So nothing makes us nothing can create a distinction between us, the upper caste and the lower caste. We all are humans. We all belong to one community, that is humankind. So some of these people also, they used to work with the lower caste, which was seen as, very, very bad sign for those who vehemently supported the upper caste system. These people worked with the lower caste people, the untouchables, for the work that they were doing. And they also stated that in the ancient times, people, they used to work together, they used to live in harmony, and they used to do all kinds of work by themselves. There were no distinction on the basis of caste. This caste system has been created by the people themselves. These were not created by gods, and so therefore we are not supposed to follow them. Even if it was created by gods, this is very unrational, because God only created everyone, if that is what people who believed in gods, they actually believe. Sri Narayan Guru. Sri Narayan Guru from the Izhava caste argued against caste inequalities. One of his famous statements were, one caste, one religion, one God for humankind. So Sri Narayan Guru was also one of the reformers who argued vehemently against the caste inequalities. He believed that all the humans were one and they had one God. There were no distinctions such as caste, because all the humans, they belong to only one thing, and that was humankind. Now we should also remember that some of the reformers, they also took examples. They also opposed against the caste supremacy from the historian perspective also. Like the upper caste Brahminical people, they said that they belonged to the Aryan race, and the Aryan race were superior to those who were there already present. Like they were superior. But some of the people who already stayed there, who did not belong to the Aryan race, they said that Aryans, they came from Central Asia to India, and they were not original natives of these places. So basically they were foreigners, and the people who were already there, who were non-Aryans, they are the actual natives, and so they were the actual people who are supposed to be living there, and not the Aryans who came there and had this caste supremacy thing. So basically caste supremacy meant nothing, because the Aryans were of a foreign land. So why should we listen anything that is coming from a foreigner? So that is one of the examples that these people also gave, the reformers gave. Jyotirao Phule and Ghulam Giri. Phule attacked the Brahmins' claim that they were Aryans, that is what I was telling about, and founded the Satya Shodhak Samaj to fight caste inequality. In 1873, he wrote a book called Ghulam Giri, linking the conditions of lower caste and the black slaves in America. Now, Jyotirao Phule was a very high thinking, a very educated person who claimed that if the upper caste people, the Brahminical people, claim that they are the descendants of Aryan, then the Aryans were not the natives of this land. The Aryans were foreigners, and we are not supposed to take orders from the foreigners. We are not supposed to follow their social thinking. So basically, we are not bounded by the social structure that they give us. Rather, we are the original natives, and we will follow whatever we are destined to follow. So he founded the Satya Shodhak Samaj that fought the caste inequality. He also wrote Ghulam Giri, and he made a parallel between the condition of the black in America, black slaves in America. At that time, slavery was being abolished in America. So he took example from that, and he supported this, that slavery should be abolished from India as well. B.R. Ambedkar's temple entry movement. Now we all know that who B.R. Ambedkar was. Apart from being, the father of a constitution, B.R. Ambedkar was also a very illuminary person. He was a very educated person, but he was not allowed, education with other folks. So he was discriminated throughout his life, and he rose against this, and he formed a lot of movement towards equality. He supported equality in any way that he could, and he also had certain movements that supported equality of all human beings. One of the movement was temple entry movement. So we all know that the untouchables, they were not allowed to take water from the well, or they were not allowed in the premises of the upper caste people or the temple grounds. So B.R. Ambedkar, between 1927 and 1935, he led 3 temple entry movements. Born as Mahar, he wrote extensively about upper caste power in contemporary society. So he wrote extensively on how these lower caste people were subdued, were coerced into some kinds of work that no human should be allowed to do. That was supposed to be, if that is supposed to be done, it was supposed to be done by all the humans and not just a particular caste people. He vehemently opposed the upper caste supremacy and the dominance that happened to the lower caste people. So he had this temple entry movement where the Dalit Samaj, the lower caste people, the untouchable people, they used to gain entry into the temple, and this, made the upper caste people, the orthodox upper caste people, very, very angry. So basically they opposed Ambedkar and his followers, they opposed his ideas, they opposed his education, and they also said very harsh remarks. But B.R. Ambedkar rose against all that, and he gave us this extraordinary constitution that we have today. Extraordinary constitution that maintains that all of us are equal, and only the law is above us. No human is above us. So let's see what other reformers were there. The non-Brahman movement. Periyar and the self-respect movement. Periyar was originally a member of the Indian National Congress. He started the self-respect movement to free untouchables from the caste inequality. He was an outspoken critic of the codes of Manu, Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. So some of the ancient texts, some of the texts, as I already said, Manu Smriti. So Manu Smriti, Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana, some of the ancient texts also supported the caste system and the Brahminical supremacy in some of the other ways. We should not take examples, it might be offensive to some kind of people, so I am not giving a very direct example, but some of us who have read Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana and Manu Smriti, of course, we might take out some of the examples where this upper caste supremacy is seen being prevailed over all the situations that happened. Some of the works that were assigned were distinct, were made distinct on the basis of caste. So caste system prevailed in some of these religious books as well, and he was an outspoken critic of the codes. Now we should remember that some of the reformists they turned to the Upanishads, because Upanishads, they thought that that used to support the equality of people, that used to that did not have any mention of the caste, and that is why they used Upanishad, they used the Vedas for their front, and they criticized the Manusmriti, Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana during that time. Periyar also started the self-respect movement to remove remove this social stigma of untouchability and caste inequality. How did the Brahmins react? We all know the reaction of that. So it was not good. Obviously, we can deduce from that it was basically not good. Orthodox Hindu society reacted by founding Sanatan Dharm Sabhas, Bharat Dharm Mahamandal, and association like Brahman Sabha. So retaliating, we can call it retaliation. It was a war now. So these reformers, they used to, they had these weapons that the Brahmins used. They had Vedas, they had Upanishad, they had ancient texts. All these were the weapons of Brahman, and they used all these against the Brahmins. So the Brahmins, they were furious. Let's imagine this as a battle. So the Brahmins, they were very furious that they stole our weapon, and now they're using it against us. They are using it against our supremacy. So what should we do? We should also form an organization, and we will take the help of those texts, those scriptures which support our arguments. So they made this Sanatan Dharm Sabha, Bharat Dharm Mahamandal and Brahman Sabha. These obviously by the word itself, by the you can see the words, it is very clear that only the upper caste people were involved in this. Debates and struggles over caste continued beyond the colonial period and are still going on in our own times. Of course, we will not need so much of caste regulated laws and so much of the laws against inequality, the laws for equality. We would not need all of this if we had equality in our present day society. So we cannot actually establish this truth that today our society is a casteless society. It is still a caste, very, very deep-rooted caste society, still now. If we see the everyday example, we can still see the caste system prevailing in our own households. So let's get over the fact that, let's get over the lie that today, even after such a civilized society, even after being the largest democracy, the world's one of the greatest constitution the history has seen, we still are not a casteless society. We still have caste system. So today also the debate about caste has not gone. Organizations for reform. The Brahmo Samaj and the Keshav Chandra Sen. The Brahmo Samaj was founded by Keshav Chandra Sen. The Brahmo Samaj they were against this Brahminical supremacy, against the caste system, and they reaffirmed, they supported the caste equality. Derosio's Young Bengal movement. Now, Derosio was a Britisher, and he used to teach in one of the universities in West Bengal, and he uplifted the youth. He told the youth that they were supposed to bring these reforms into the society. That female, they should be allowed to learn at educational institutions. That the caste system was supposed to go down. So he used to uplift the youth to get into these reforms and to make changes and to get into the society and bring changes that were supposed to happen. The Ramakrishna Mission and Swami Vivekanand. So Ramakrishna Mission was founded by Swami Vivekanand. It was named after his teacher, his guru, that was Ramakrishna Paramhans. Swami Vivekanand was one of a great scholar. He also gave this, we all know about his speech in Chicago. His speech in Chicago, made the New Yorkers say that, why are we teaching this country? This country is already this country has so much of wisdom that we do not need to teach it. So that is those are the great words that come as an appreciation for Swami Vivekanand. He vehemently opposed the caste system and all forms of social taboos that were happening, all forms of orthodox practices that were happening. And he also supported a way of social reform that also uplifted the poor. So he was very, very connected with the philosophy that Ramakrishna Paramhans gave, and he was so affiliated with the need of poor. He was so distracted by the growing poverty of the Indian state that he also jumped into that, and he also said that we should all strive to move towards progress, and rather than seeing these systems, rather than prohibiting some people to gaining education, and rather than distinguish them on the basis of caste, rather than making them inferior to us, we should all work towards something that needs our attention. That was poverty also. So he was a great advocate for all the caste equality. He was the supporter of caste equality, the women reforms, and poverty, against poverty. The Prarthana Samaj was again one of the establishments which had equality in its mind. The Ved Samaj, they upheld the Vedas, they upheld the supremacy of Vedas, and they said that the Vedas, they established that there should be no inequality, that there was no distinction on the basis of caste. The Vedas did not mention about any distinction that was based on caste. So we should not, take caste inequality as it is in its social form. The Aligarh Movement and Syed Ahmad Khan. So Syed Ahmad Khan opened Aligarh Muslim University as we know it today. That time it was known as Aligarh Movement. It used to, teach all kinds of students. There were girls also. He also, advocated for girls. There were girl child also, and there were all kinds of people who used to, get educated here. The Singh Sabha movement. This was established by a Sikh who was also against the caste inequalities, and he also was a supporter of the women reforms.